Now, we've known, we've lamented, we've been upset by the fact that Disney torpedoed the Spider-Man deal with Sony. They botched it. They ruined it. They threw Spider-Man out of the MCU. They basically really screwed the pooch. As some people like to pretend and try to act like it was Sony's fault, those are people who don't like to look at the actual facts. Disney botched it. And I love Disney. You know, Disney's got a great place in my heart, but Disney screwed up badly. And they ruined the whole thing anyway. But I've always said, the MCU will be fine. They were fine before they had Spider-Man. They'll be fine after Spider-Man. Sony will be fine. Sony has made the best Spider-Man movies. Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, those are the best Spider-Man movies, and they were made without Marvel. So everybody will be fine. But damn, don't we all wish they had made the deal. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to say Disney caved. Hashtag trend, Disney caved, and I couldn't be happier and more proud of them. They made the right decision because it had come out this morning. They put out a statement. Sony and Marvel put out a statement together, and they have reconciled. They've got everything back together, and it looks very, very similar to what the original deal was going to be, which is what Sony wanted in the first place. But it's been improved a little bit from Disney's point of view, so it is a win-win for everybody. Let's look at some of the details here of this deal, the way it's being reported. Now, this comes to us from the good folks over at Variety. Here's some of the details. First of all, we've known they reassert here that Disney wanted a 50-50 split with Sony. But the more important part, the real thing that destroyed the deal, was the fact that Disney also wanted to co-finance. And that is something Sony should and could never allow them to do, because once you allow the other guy to start paying for it, they start having ownership rights over the content you're creating. As long as Sony is paying for everything in these movies, Sony owns everything in those movies that isn't already completely tied to the MCU. So what did we end up getting? A pretty good deal for everybody. The article reads in Variety, the new deal was signed late on Thursday night. Negotiations involved top players from both studios, including Sony Pictures chief Tom Rothman, Kevin Feige, and Walt Disney Studios head Alan Horn. That's Feige's boss. In exchange for lending Feige's producing prowess, Marvel and Disney will receive roughly 25% of the profits, according to insiders. So that's an increase from the 5% first dollar that they had from that. It's half of what they originally asked for, 50%, and no co-financing deal. Disney will retain its merchandising rights, which is very key for Disney. As a part of the arrangement, Spider-Man will also appear in one future Marvel Studios film. So what we're looking at here, Rob, I gotta tell you, this is a good deal for everybody. Finally, it's not a good deal unless both sides can walk away and say, we feel like everybody won. This is a good deal. Disney gets a little bit of a bigger stake in the pie. They get to have Spider-Man in the MCU. And let's face it, Rob, we've been talking about this. The MCU just lost Iron Man, they lost Captain America, and they were losing Spider-Man. To keep one of the most popular characters under their roof, at least for now, because who knows how long this new deal lasts. We could be going through this all again in 2 years. But still, for now, they get to keep Spider-Man around. We get one more Spider-Man movie, and we get at least one more MCU movie with Spider-Man popping in there. Sony got exactly what they needed. No co-financing. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. They were able to get Disney to take that off the table. Disney gets a little bit of a bigger piece of the pie. This is the deal they should have made. And what I want to ask these knuckleheads, both at Sony and Disney, is we all knew this was the right deal. We all knew Disney had to take co-financing off the table. We all knew Sony had to give Disney a little bit of a bigger piece of the pie. Everybody knew it. Why couldn't they have made this deal before all the drama and ripping, tearing the hearts of the fans back and forth and tearing it up? I don't know why these knuckleheads couldn't have come. Because, Rob, you and I and all of you guys watching, we all knew this was the right deal. This was the deal that made sense. This is the deal that was a win for everybody. Sony gets to keep ownership. Disney gets to have Spidey in the MCU. A little bit more money for everybody. I don't know why they didn't just do this before. I don't know if Disney thought, and again, I have love for Disney. Everybody knows that. But I don't know if Disney thought, We're Disney. We know our fans are gonna agree with us no matter how idiotic we're being, and we'll turn all of public opinion against Sony and we'll make them cave even though what we're asking for is unreasonable. And I'm glad that didn't happen. But again, I don't know why Sony couldn't have just said, guys, this is the deal. Why didn't Disney just say, guys, this is the deal? The important thing though is we're here. Rob, I don't only see this as a win for the fans, which clearly, bottom line, this is a win for everybody. Because I thought the MCU would be fine without Spider-Man. I thought Sony would be fine without Marvel. But this is the best situation. And I think this is a good deal for everybody. And I think everybody should be happy about this. What do you make of this?
Well, I mean, first of all, I like seeing good business done. And when something like this happens, it's good business for everybody across the board. And I'll tell you what I think really was fueling this. They know whatever that Spider-Man movie is going to be, whatever the third Spider-Man movie is going to be, it's not like they just make these movies in a vacuum. They already have Spider-Man 3 planned. That's why they're talking about a 2021 release date.
Oh, thank you for bringing it up. That's a key thing. The release date, by the way, just for those you may not have heard, the film has a release date now. They've already given it a release date, July 16th, 2021. And of course, Amy Pascal stays on and produces as well. Pascal and Feige both put out comments talking about how both of them are completely thrilled. Again, it's a good week to be Kevin Feige, right?
I mean, look at how Spider-Man Far From Home ended. They knew what they were going to do. So they had already had a film in development, as Marvel does. I mean, they're not like, say, other franchises that don't know what they're doing from film to film. But this franchise knew what they were doing, so they had already had this movie planned out. And what were they going to do? Sony was going to go back to the drawing board because they couldn't use any of the material that had already been developed. That's probably not the smartest thing. I think cooler heads prevailed. Even at Disney, they're like, gosh, we have this movie ready to go. Why don't we back off on the co-financing like you said? I mean, I don't know if necessarily they caved as much as they just got smarter. They're like, look, there's no reason.
I'll take either.
Yeah, there's no reason why we have to like play hardball here because everybody wants another Spider-Man movie. Spider-Man did very, very well for everybody. It's good for everyone. This is good for everyone, like you pointed out. And I think what's really important is they have a movie on deck. They've already done all the preliminary work. I don't know if they have a script. I'm not saying they have a finished script now, but I'm certain they have an outline. I'm certain they know what they're doing. I'm sure that we can expect announcements because for July 2021, you're talking less than 2 years. This movie's got to move. This movie is going to be. It's going to go rapidly into production. They know what they're going to do. Sony's got Venom 2 in production. They've got other things we'll talk about. I'm sure.
Morbius, yeah,
and Morbius and other things, which I'm like,
we're going to get to in a bit, yeah.
And it's just good for everyone, John. I'm happy. The fans are happy. I'm sure Tom Holland's happy, and what a happy day this is. Going into October, as we call it, as I'm sure everyone calls it, Rocktober. It's a good month. It's going to be a good month.
Now, look, one of the things, too, that comes up here is this. It's a one Spider-Man movie deal with one appearance in another MCU film. That's great. The reality is, I think there is a very good possibility not only that we are going to find ourselves back in this situation in a couple of years about now Disney and Sony's deal has expired. Now what? I think, and people might think I'm crazy, but follow me here. I think there is a 50-50 chance here that a part of these negotiations that went on late last night to finalize this deal, part of it was the understanding this is it. I feel like if this was going to be a longer term deal, we would have seen 2 Spider-Man films, 3 appearances in MCU films, or something like that. I feel like this was you know what? Again, I'm not saying it will be, but I'm thinking it's a coin toss, 50-50, that Disney and Sony said, you know what? Okay, we're going to end our deal, but let's do this to end it. Instead of ending it so abruptly, instead of ending it with everybody so upset, let's sign one more deal. We'll do one more Spider-Man film. We'll have Spider-Man pop up in one more MCU film. This affords them the opportunity, Rob, to do a couple of things. Number one, with the MCU, it gives Disney the opportunity to ease a little bit more easy into the next phase of the MCU. Like, again, we've talked about before, and you can't underestimate this. They've lost their 2 biggest, most popular characters in Captain America and Iron Man, and their third most popular character in Spider-Man. At least now with Spider-Man still there, it gives you a little bit more of an easing into this next phase of the MCU, where we're bringing in a lot more characters and new faces, and they're changing the dynamic of it, and that's good for them. That's good for Disney. From Sony's point of view, it gives them more time to go, you know what, let's really plan out bringing Spider-Man. Let's give ourselves a couple years here to really plan out bringing Spider-Man back into the Sonyverse, back into the Sony Spider-Man verse, and it gives more time for us, the fans, to have closure with it, to accept and say, okay, we're going to get a couple more Spider-Mans in the MCU. Now, again, I only think that's 50-50. I still think there's a 50-50 chance that this just bought them time to say, you know what? We can't come to a long-term deal right now. Let's at least make a short-term deal and buy ourselves some time to negotiate more behind closed doors for the next year and a half, 2 years, and see if we can come up with a longer-term arrangement. So this could go either way. It could be buying themselves time to exit or buying themselves time to extend something out even more. Rob, if you're looking at those two propositions, which one of those two do you think this Spider-Man deal represents? The opportunity to buy more time to hammer out a longer-term deal, or buying more time to smooth out the exit from the MCU, smooth out the entrance into the Sonyverse? How do you see it?
I think it's always better when you leave your options open. And I think, look, Sony has Morbius coming out, which is, let's face it, a risk. That's part of their Spider-Man universe.
So was Venom, yeah.
They got Venom 2 coming out. You know, who knows? They never know, but they've got these 2 Spider-Man movies and others that we're going to talk about. But I think this way, look, I've always said that the third movie in this Home trilogy should be called, I thought it should be called Homefront before I saw Far From Home, because now Homefront, literally Spider-Man's dilemma, as we saw at the end of Far From Home, has to do with his own city now. You know, as we know, certain things have changed in the life of Peter Parker based on the end of Far From Home. And I think, you know, having a trilogy, they're going to cap off what I call the Home trilogy, and it's going to be spectacular, you know, or amazing, however it's going to be. At least they're going to have the trilogy. And then you've got one more movie. If Spider-Man says something like, listen, I can't go on these cosmic odysseys. I need to, like, chill out and deal with my friendly neighborhood, being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But depending on where Sony's universe goes and what happens with the Marvel universe, if this works out and everybody's cool, why not just have the opportunity? Sure, if you want to bring Spider-Man back for another MCU movie, a second one or a third one, why not? Because the investment of these movies is so much money. You know, you're talking $200 million investments every time. And if Sony's fortunes aren't doing so well, or they're going to get bought by a streaming service, or whatever's going to happen, it gives people room to move. And now we know one thing. We know that there's going to be another Spider-Man movie in the MCU that's going to go into production in the next probably 3 or 4 months. And we're going to get it. We're going to get it in July of 2021. And that's less than 2 years. And that's a win for everybody.
Rob, let me ask you this. In the midst of all this, now I'm saying here, this is a win for everybody. This is a win for the fans, a win for Disney, a win for Sony. Everybody should be happy, blah, blah, blah. With everything, there's a flip side.
Yeah.
And so let me put this to you right now. We're not trying to be negative or anything like that, but if you had to make an argument that there is potential, not necessarily existing downside, but potential negatives, a potential downside, what would you maybe say would be some of the things that we as fans or whatever should be cautious of? Or, hey, look, we got this great thing, but it came at the expense of this. What do you think maybe any potential downside to this could be?
Well, look, fans are always going to want more. I think I really don't see a potential downside necessarily unless there isn't closure for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, here's what I would love to see. I would love to see a young Avengers movie with these new characters introduced, led by Spider-Man.
High school student?
Not necessarily, maybe not high school student, but if they're going to introduce Kate and Hawkeye, you know, they're going to introduce these young Avengers. What better way to introduce a young Avengers movie than to have them led by Spider-Man, at least for one film?
But can you have and we were talking about this flip side of the coin, if the idea is, okay, we just got one more Spider-Man film, one more shared thing. Can you have Spider-Man leaving the film, leading one of those films, and a new Avengers type of team, and then have him gone?
Well, yeah,
I mean, do that?
I think so. It's like it's something he has to do out of necessity. You know, maybe the rest of the Avengers are gone cosmically or whatever, and I think it'd be kind of cool. And then at the end of the movie, he sort of steps away. Call me if you need me. You know, and leave it open. I mean, it stays open-ended, but he goes, "You guys don't need me anymore since you're going to go off to the West Coast or wherever the hell you're going to go." But I mean, I think it'd be an interesting way to cap off his involvement. I'll be around, you know, or whatever. But it could be. I'm just really excited.
If there was any downside to this that I can see, the downside comes from this circus that we just went through, of all the fans getting angry, the studios looking silly, all that kind of stuff. The only downside I see from this is the potential is there that we might be going through all this again in 2 years.
Right.
That's the only potential thing here, is that we're going to have a repeat performance of this. Now, if that's the case, and if we're saying that, again, I think it's 50-50. They're either going to use these 2 years to prepare a longer deal, or they're going to use these 2 years to plan an exit. If it's the exit one, and that's a big if, but if it is the exit one, and we're going to have to go through this whole thing again where the fans are going to have the hearts broken again. Okay, now he's out and we got to readjust to everything like that. I still think it's worth it, because now at least we're going to get a little bit of closure. They're going to know what's happening in 2 years, and it will still be worth it. But I am not looking forward to, if it does go that way, that in 2 years we're having to have all these conversations again. You know, that's the one thing that I think is kind of unfortunate, that, when you don't want to put my kid through that again. I don't want them to put their kids through this whole thing again. You know what I'm saying, Ron?
Well, but John, the one thing I could say about that is we now know. We know that we're getting one more Spider-Man movie and one appearance in the MCU, and that's it. So we as fans know that that's it. We're on borrowed time with Spider-Man. And if they're able to do something differently, well, then it could be a gift for us. But we all have to come to grips with the fact that, hey, we got our reprieve. We're amazing. We're getting another movie, and we're getting another Spider-Man appearance in the MCU. That's it. So we need to prepare for that. It's like, I think we've been given a gift. This was a gift. We should enjoy it, embrace it. And if we're able to get more than that, then wow, all we can do from this is get something like another Christmas present on Christmas morning that was behind the tree that nobody saw, and we're going to get to open it later, maybe.
Is that the mentality we should be having? Because we're saying here 50-50 chance. 50-50 chance that they're going to use this to extend a deal later. 50-50 chance this is our exit, this is the end. Should we as fans be approaching it with that mentality, that we should just approach this as fans as this is going to be it? And if we prepare ourselves now and say, this is going to be it, then if they do extend the deal later, yay. And if they don't extend the deal, then that's cool. We got 2 extra films out of it, and we were prepared for it. Is that how we should approach it?
I think you're exactly right. I think that's the best way to approach it. But I always go with what James T. Kirk said at the end of Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
You always go with whatever James T. Kirk said.
And, as you reminded everyone that Spock told him that there are always possibilities.
There are always possibilities.
There are always possibilities. And you know what, John? It ain't show friends, it's show business. And Spider-Man does some good business.
It's some good business. And again, a good week to be Kevin Feige. He's going to do a Star Wars movie. He gets to do another Spider-Man.
I mean, I wonder if like Kevin Feige just goes to the bank and pulls like a Diabolic. There's a movie called Diabolic, Danger Diabolic, where he steals a bunch of money, he throws it all over his bed, and he makes love to his beautiful girlfriend, Eva. I wonder if Kevin Feige does that. I wonder if Kevin Feige just goes to the bank, gets hundreds of thousands of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars in $100 bills and just spreads them out wherever and has his way with whatever he's doing and just rolls around in, because I'd like to believe that's what he does.
It's a good fantasy to have.
As he looks up, I think that's what at his hot toy figure of himself.